to this week's episode of the COMO411, where our focus this week is Como history. Joining us in studio is our first guest, Dan Boes, who is the co-owner of Pierpont General Store. Dan, welcome to the COMO411.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So I understand there's a lot of history behind the Pierpont General Store. Give me your overall spiel about the history of Pierpont.
Yeah, so there's a lot of takes out there, but as you see with like our marketing, 1889 is when Pierpont store was built essentially, and that was down by Rockbridge State Park, like near Devil's Icebox.
Yeah.
At one point there was a community down there, and then from what I've learned is there was a fire, and then due to that, they actually horse and buggied the building, which I thought this was a prank or a lie for the longest time, but they horse and buggied the building up the hill to its current location. Since then, it's been a blacksmith shop, a mill, you know, a general store as it is now, a gas station. So, I mean, multiple people have lived in it. It's been a house. I mean, it's been a lot of stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that is all very fascinating.
Yeah, it's a lot to learn.
It is, it is. And you are, how long have you been co-owner?
Oh gosh, it's just over 2 years, getting close to 3.
Okay, and so you come in and then you hear about all these stories and learn all this fun history.
You really have no idea too. You're just like, oh, okay. I had no idea what I was getting involved with.
Yeah, you're like, I thought this was just, you know, farm fresh eggs and
a gas station that sells beer.
Can you actually get gas there?
You can.
Really?
Yeah. We have 2 pumps there, and it gets very busy. So, yeah, it's crazy.
I had no idea.
I know. It's not quite a break time. A little bit different vibe to it. A little different vibe. But maybe that's why people like it.
When you walk into the market, I mean, the vibe is like, this has been here a long time.
Creaky floorboards. So, you know, if one breaks, you're like, oh, where are we going to go find this old floorboard so it doesn't look brand new? You know, we have stuff on the wall. We have deer heads. It is very much a old country store vibe. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me where you're located, just in case there's somebody who is like, where is this funky gas station, you know, with the old floors?
Hills go down 163. So we're right. I mean, you can't miss us. So one of the local businesses out there is Strawberry Hills.
Yes.
Everyone knows about Strawberry Hills. Love them. You drive right past us every time. So people always like, I wonder what that little gas station is. That is Pierpont right on the corner.
Yeah, and I've been to Pierpont more recently for some really interesting, fun fundraising type events.
Our celebrity bartending.
Yes.
Yeah. Our celebrity bartending, we've been doing it about 3 years. It kind of started off as like, you know, it's our off season, so it's cold and you know, people don't want to get out of their house.
Sure.
We're like, okay, you know, how can we turn this into a more exciting thing to get people in here for maybe a good cause? And the previous owners, Jed and Brandy Taylor, they were the first to, you know, essentially come up with this idea. And then we were like, this is genius. And we ran with it. So, you know, a good example is Charlotte Brumfield and Craig Brumfield.
Yes.
They are my favorite bartenders, which I'll probably hear about that later from a lot of other people.
They're great folks and great bartenders as well.
Yeah.
Craig makes a good drink.
Craig shooed me off the bar because I was trying to talk to him during his event. So, yeah, he, you know, I think he raised like $2,600 for Peace, which is just another great charity. But it is very much a business, and it is, people pack that place. It's good for the community. It's good for just, you know, exposure for everybody. And yeah, we always enjoy it. It's a good time.
It is. And do you guys have live music out there sometime? Because I think I see a little bit of a...
Yeah, I mean, if you're driving by during our live music nights, you're like, why are there cars in the ditch? And people will find places to park out there. You know, we've secured some like satellite lots and to provide more parking and you name it. But yeah, it's very busy during our live music.
Yeah, and I will say, I noticed you guys sell Logboat beer.
Oh yeah, this is my shameless plug for Logboat.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sell it. We go through a lot of it in the summer. Unfortunately. Yeah.
No, fortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are great guys at Logboat.
Oh, love them.
We love them over here. And we appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show and telling us about the history of Pierpont General Store.
Well, again, thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
All right. And coming up next, we have our next guest, Barbra Horrell, to talk to us about Blind Boone Home. Lots of history that happens here in Columbia, lots of historic buildings. And now we're going to talk with our next guest, Barbra Horrell, and she'll tell us all about the Blind Boone Home. Miss Barbra, welcome to the COMO411.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. You know, Barbra, you're one of my favorite people in Columbia.
Girl, stop.
Seriously, I love talking to you, so this is great.
All right.
And I know you know all the history about all the things, but today we're talking about the Blind Boone home.
Yes.
So tell me about Blind Boone home, about Blind Boone.
Okay. Years ago, many, many years ago, there was a enslaved lady that was with the armory in Warrensburg, Missouri, and she became impregnated by a white corporal, the bugle boy. And she later delivered a child that was blind, and that was John William Boone. And believe it or not, the father was shipped off, and he never even knew he had the child. So after the war, after he had left with the war, she went into her job, and she had this child that was always getting into things. Because he was blind, he didn't know anything else to do. He played and played and played and played. Well, he got to the point that they sent him to St. Louis, where they would send all impaired children years ago, to make brooms. Blind children went and they made brooms and brooms. And he was in St. Louis and he didn't like it, so he would run off. And he learned to hear the music he heard. He learned to play the piano, and he played the music. Harmonicas, everything. He played every instrument. And later on in life, he was in Missouri, came back to Columbia, and was doing a concert in Fayette, Missouri. And this guy saw him and saw that people were using him, you know, as prophet. And so this guy got with him and said, we're gonna be a team. And so this guy happened to be John Lang Jr. And John Lang Jr. became his brother-in-law.
Oh.
He married Lang's sister Eugenia.
Okay.
And the house that they live in was a wedding gift from John Lang Jr. He was a contractor here in Columbia. And you have to know the history of the John Lang Sr. to know that they were big time black, at that time, Negro, African American, whatever they're calling it at that time, producers in Columbia. They were the wealthy. And so he built the house for them. 10 rooms. They never had any children. But Boone went on to be one of the world famous musicians in the country. He did ragtime. He did American history music, African American music. He did soul music. He did jazz. Every music he would hear, he never put anything, nothing was ever written.
Wow.
So if you come to the house, you get to see his original piano, which we have just gotten back after 15 years of being in storage someplace in Virginia. And we also have his other piano, his traveling piano is out at the Boone County Historical Society, and you should see them both, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I've seen that out there.
We invite everybody to come to the house. It is not a museum. It is a home.
Yes.
It is a place, community place. It's dedicated for 1927, and it's everything in it is of the 1927 vintage.
And so people can rent the home. I mean, they can get tours, but they could rent the home to use for events,
whatever you need for the house. We have 2 things a year that are our giveaways. We have his birthday coming up in May, but we're going to have it in June. June the 3rd, we're going to have a birthday party. So everybody, please come. 4 to 7. We have music, and we're going to even have barbecue this year. And then we have the Christmas party, and everybody's in. And those are our fundraisers. We don't go out and do any fundraising because the house belongs to the city of Columbia.
Okay.
And in 2000, the house was renovated, and we've taken us this long to get the house where we want it.
Wow.
And the foundation does run it. We are the curators of the house.
You are the curators of the house. And how many people, if I was renting it for an event, let's say, how many people could I get in? I know it's more than what people think from the outside.
We can get, walking around in the house, we can get, at Christmas time, we've had 150 or so. Ragtime, we had 200 there.
Wow.
And if you come in the summer, we can use the yard because there is a garden, a tribute garden in the back.
Yeah.
And you can contribute to the tribute garden and bring your stone. We'll take a stone from you anytime. So it's a wonderful place. It's a nice place to just go. We do tours with the kids in the public school system. Wrote a program for them because of the Black History and the Heritage Trail, Black Heritage Trail. And those kids come in and they're fascinated to see the house.
Yes.
And they go, when I say we're going back to 1927, and they look at you like, huh?
Right. They have no idea.
No idea. Had no idea what 1927 looked like. So they go in the house and they go, first thing they say is, it looks like my grandmother's house.
Yes. Yes, and it does.
Yeah.
It does. The inside of it is very nostalgic.
Yeah.
And you guys, the renovation
was beautiful. It's beautiful. You should have seen it before that.
We'll have to get some pictures of you of what it looked like
pictures
before.
of the house, and you won't believe it.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Barbara, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you coming on to talk about this. And not just that, Barbara, we just appreciate you.
Thank you.
We know you hold a lot of history in your heart.
Oh, lots.
Yeah. And we 100% appreciate everything that you do in this community, because I know all the time when you're walking those kids around on that hour.
Oh, that's a pleasure, but it gets to be tiring.
I am sure it does. We appreciate you, Barbara.
Right, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. And coming up next, our next guest in studio is Dianna Borsi O'Brien from COMO Preservation. There is so much history here in Columbia, and now there's a group for that. There is an organization in town, COMO Preservation, and here with us is the board president, Dianna Borsi O'Brien. Dianna, welcome to the COMO411.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about being here. COMO Preservation is getting ready to celebrate its 1-year anniversary coming up next month.
Okay.
And we are all about saving the history of our architecture and buildings. We already have 2 other organizations that save some of our history, but nobody but us is dedicated to just saving our history in our buildings and our buildings. We got started from outrage over the buildings that were demolished at MU. As you probably well know, our first hospital was demolished, the first women's dorm was demolished, and I think it took us by surprise. We realized how easily we could lose the jewels of our community. So we got started, and we believe that when you save a building, you save your history, which tells you who you are and where you're going.
That's amazing. So tell me, what kind of seems like there's just people like, I really love history, you know, and who are really interested in the history of the buildings inside of Columbia?
We will take, you don't have to be interested just in buildings.
Okay.
You can be interested in giving back, because we're here to do 3 things. First of all, to teach people the importance of historic preservation. It's a big economic engine. Second, we're here to help people find alternatives to demolition. Sometimes buildings are demolished because of neglect. So we're going to put together a toolkit and a list about workmen and craftsmen who can repair your home. If you have an old plaster home, it's really hard to find somebody who does plaster.
Yeah.
So we will create that list. And the third thing we're doing is to put together a toolkit to help people if they do want to preserve their neighborhood, their home, their building. There are ways that you can put in place ordinances and things like that that will make your home or your building saved, not just for now, but for the future. And that also is an economic boost.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. So let's say I'm at home and I'm watching this show, and I think, this sounds like something that I would love to get involved with, or love to at least check out a meeting. Tell me about your meetings. How often do you meet? How can somebody find you?
Well, you can find us everywhere.
Okay.
We have a website, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and you can come to our meetings. Our meetings are very casual. They're once a month, and we often have the movers and shakers who come and talk to us about historic preservation, or an organization in town that contributes to historic preservation. Our next speaker is going to be the owner of the Niedermeyer, and he's going to tell us why he saved that building. And when he told me why he saved that building, I almost cried and teared up.
Really?
It's a great story. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but the Niedermeyer is actually where Stevens College got its start. So he was very touched by that, because one of his relatives had been a school teacher. And when he heard that story about the Niedermeyer, he had to save that building. So I told that little secret. I should have kept it.
Oh.
But we do meet once a month. We have a, so if you just love history,
yes,
our calendar contains all the items going on in Columbia about history-related events. So we try to keep our calendar up to date.
That is fabulous and really good to know. And so we can find Como Preservation on your website, on Facebook, on all the social media. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry, did you tell us the website? I'm sorry, I can't remember.
We keep it simple, COMOpreservation.org.
Okay, COMOpreservation.org. That's where you can find them. Thank you for joining us, Dianna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the COMO411. We learned a lot about Como history, but there's always more to find out. So please check out the websites of all three of our wonderful guests today. We learned a lot about Pierpont, the Blind Boone Home, and Como Preservation. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will be back at you next week with a new episode. Peace out.